in between, which is located in between 57th and 58th Street. As you see in this rendering here, the US Rubber Company building at the corner is an anchoring point for a collection of historic and existing and new buildings that make up the footprint of Nordstrom, which is an important retailer that has made a significant investment in New York City over the past few years. And before I dive into the presentation, Chris Wanlast from Nordstrom will just say a few words. So if you want to go ahead, Chris.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for making time for us on your agenda tonight. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Chris. I'm the Vice President General Manager of Nordstrom. And, we are so excited. I've been in Nordstrom 28 years. We're a 128-year-old company. And I thought just, to give you a little insight on why we're here in front of you today. Our ambition, it took us about 20 years to find our spot, and we love it. We think we're really, really proud and pleased to be on the West Side, where so much retail has always been situated on the east side of Manhattan. We feel really, really fortunate to be there. The adjacency to Columbus Circle and the Upper West Side, we feel is a super underutilized, under-tapped part of the city that we wanted to connect with. I think for us, this is a huge investment, as Sarah mentioned. This is a time that most people aren't built, making stores. This is even pre-COVID. Even when you look at the trends globally, big, large department stores aren't really being built anywhere. So, our ambition was big. We really wanted to create something that New Yorkers could be proud of, certainly as a company that we'd be proud of. I remember speaking to our board of directors several years ago, and our ambition was, how do we become the neighborhood store? Make it easy for locals, but also, make it really interesting for tourists. So if you haven't been to the store, or hopefully you've walked by it, but one of the things I think is really unique is just the juxtaposition of the architecture, this old and new, and Sarah will talk a little bit more about it. And I think, we're proud of being able to bring these beautiful buildings back to life and bring a lot of this character back. One of the challenges, obviously, and COVID has exaggerated that, is it's been the challenges for retail. And one of the things we had noted, particularly on 1790, which is our corner building, was just our ability to get our name out. When we think about the amount of folks that are in the Columbus Circle area, which we feel is an important retail core for us to connect to, the banner that we're proposing and talking to you today about just gives us that name visibility. Because when you stand there, it's difficult to see our building. And we actually, through a temporary permit, we did something and saw an immediate increase in our business when we did that throughout the fourth quarter of last year. So, that's our goal is, we want to be able to do more business, be able to bring more people back to work, help bring more tax base back to the city. We're committed. We built this to, be here for the long haul and be good neighbors to this area. But we really feel that. And, our flagpoles, just coming out of Memorial Day, for instance, just when we think about these iconic retailers, just our ability to be able to hang a US flag or Nordstrom flag would be important ways for us just to bring our business to life. And so that's a little bit about us and why we're here.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So because we are discussing two buildings, but with the same project team, I'm first going to start with the 1790 Broadway banner proposal and then move on to 1780 Broadway after that. And just let me know if it would be better to stop in the middle or if to just do it in one go. You can decide at the end of the 1790.
Let's actually go through the entire presentation. Okay. And then we can bundle the questions.
Perfect. Okay. So the US Rubber Company building is a 20-story office building that was designed by Career and Hastings and constructed between 1911 and 1912. As part of Nordstrom's investment in New York City, specifically this block, they undertook a substantial restoration of the base, removing the 1950s gray stone and recreating the historic base to bring back that elegant grandeur of the historic building at the pedestrian level. Here are photographs of the overall building with the restored base as one sees today. The proposal before you today is for a new seasonal banner master plan at the corner of 1790 Broadway. As Chris mentioned, a temporary landmarks permit was issued for a banner this past year, which you see here. This is helpful to understand what the proposal will generally look like. However, the proposed banner master plan will be 5 feet shorter than this to provide more of a marble border on either end of the banner. The proposal is for 4 banners a year for a maximum of 8 months out of the year, which means that there would be no banner at the corner for 4 months out of the year. So this evening, I will walk you through some historic photos of the building and its context within Automobile Row to explain why we feel a banner is appropriate at this location. So here are our earliest photographs of the building. The building is a steel structure clad in marble veneer with the stone piers intended to give it the impression that the walls are a thin skin stretched over the steel cage beneath. In its original form, the building always had prominent signage, as you can see in these photographs. There were rooftop signs at the north and south, as well as a corner sign at the second floor. You can see both of these photos. The US Rubber Company building was located in the stretch of Broadway that was known as Automobile Row. This was a district that stretched from Times Square to a bit south of West 72nd Street that made up of automobile sales showrooms, stores for parts and accessories, garages for storage and repair services. It wasn't necessarily a bustling district. There weren't a lot of people that were walking through the area. It was, however, characterized by these large sort of bustling signs. So here at the top left, at 54th and Broadway, we see the Nash sign here on the left and the Ford sign on the right. The top right photo shows the Hudson building, which had a rooftop sign that might have been larger than the building itself. Bottom left, a garage building that had flat signage adhered to the corner, both on this facade and this facade, as well as a large bracket sign. And then bottom right, the old Packard building with rooftop signage, as well as a blade sign at the corner. Following up on these photos of specific buildings in Automobile Row, these 2 photographs are intended to show more generally the character of Columbus Circle and Automobile Row in the first half of the 20th century. On the right, we see the Automobile Row skyline as seen from Central Park with US Rubber located here, and you can see the large illuminated signage at the top of the roof. And then on the left, this is actually a Bernice Abbott photo taken from behind one of the iconic Columbus Circle rooftop signs looking north. I think Abbott's choice to feature signage in the foreground of this photograph just shows how integral signs were as part of this area of the city. So in 1951, the US Rubber Company building relocated its headquarters to Rockefeller Center. And at that time, the West Side Federal Savings Bank took over the building in the 1950s. And as the bank was moving into the building, the neighborhood around Columbus Circle was changing quite rapidly. Apartment buildings were being constructed along Central Park South, including this lot here in front of US Rubber. And Robert Moses was in the process of constructing the Coliseum Convention Center at Columbus Circle, where Time Warner Center is today. And he was also constructing additional housing far west. There was a change to the character of the neighborhood with greater foot traffic and a desire for a more urban experience at the pedestrian scale. Because of these changes, signage started moving from the rooftops to the bases of the buildings, as we see in this photo here at US Rubber on the right. This 1956 photograph of the building shows an illuminated corner sign where we're proposing the banner, as well as marquee signage here, and then flagpoles between the base and the shaft of the building. In 1959, the bank removed the corner sign and remodeled the 2 lower floors of the building with that gray stone that we were looking at earlier. So this corner sign only existed contemporaneously with the original base. So now we return to the building today. The base has been beautifully restored. There's a new use, a new life at the building, and a retail district has really coalesced at this section of Manhattan with the Time Warner Center and many other retail outlets within this area. And then just to talk about specific details of the proposal, there would be 23 anchor points at the corner that are attached through the building's mortar joints. Here's a closer up detail of the type of hardware that would go through the mortar joints. And because we have the temporary signage, you can see the type of anchor that would be used to fasten the new banners to the facade. This is an image showing the height of the proposed banners. It would be 45 feet in height and 5.5 feet in width. And as I mentioned, the proposal is for a master plan, so it would be 4 banners per year for up to 2 to 3 months at a time, no more than 8 months in a year. So that would coincide with season changes, anniversary sales, holidays. So this is a variety of the banner types that one might see throughout the year. So in conclusion, for the 1790 portion of the presentation, the U.S. Rubber Company building was originally built as part of Automobile Row, a district that was distinguished by large signage, particularly at the roofs of buildings. As the neighborhood evolved with new apartments and new public uses, signage moved to the base of the building to better connect with that pedestrian level. When the base was remodeled in the late 1950s, the corner signage was removed and that original grandeur of the ground floor was lost. With the new tenant, Nordstrom, and a restored base in place, as well as a surrounding retail district, a sign in this location is appropriate. Additionally, the choice of a banner sign allows for minimal impact to the historic fabric and will be removed for 4 months out of the year. Okay, so going one building south to BF Goodrich. So this was US Rubber, and now we're at BF Goodrich, located at 1780 Broadway. This is another individual landmark that is associated with the Automobile Row history of the section of Broadway. It is the BF Goodrich, the company, is actually noted for being the first producer of automobile tires. And this was the company's New York headquarters between 1909 and 1928. It was designed by Howard Van Dornshaw and Ward and Willewer. It's also a steel frame building, 12 stories tall, clad in red brick, trimmed in limestone. It has a 2-story granite base with this shallow pedimented cornice, and it also has a pedimented top to it. So Nordstrom actually occupies the entire building of 1780 Broadway. And the proposal here before you today is to add 2 flagpoles, one here and one here, right where that break is between the base and the shaft of the building. And not only did this building historically have a flagpole, but we feel this proposal is also appropriate due to the building's full adaptive reuse as a department store, which is a building type that historically and contemporarily utilizes flagpoles. So some historic photos. So on the left, we have an early photo of the BF Goodrich building. When it was constructed, it was the tallest building in the area, and took advantage of this with its crowned by large signage, also had very nice lot-lying windows, but it was quickly dwarfed by its neighbors to the north and the south, as we see going to the 1940 tax photo. And also what the 1940 tax photo shows us is a flagpole located over the 3rd story here at the center of the building, which was intended to line up with the other flagpoles that line the whole block at US Rubber and to the south. And here's a 1956 photo just showing that more clearly, with the flagpoles going across US Rubber to BF Goodrich to the building to the south. So as I mentioned, this proposal is for 2 flagpoles located over the 2nd floor base. As you likely know, flagpoles were historically typically installed at the break between the base and the shaft of the building. So even though this is not in the identical location of where the previous flagpole was installed at this building, we feel the flagpoles are appropriate in these locations. This is a photograph of the top of that 2-story base showing where the flagpole would, the hardware for the flagpole would be installed. And we have a typical flagpole detail showing how it would be anchored to the sill area and then tied back in through the mortar joints of the brick that are on either side of this window. So as I mentioned, Nordstrom occupies the entirety of 1780 Broadway. And this adaptive reuse to a department store, I think, warrants an investigation into department store identity generally. Flagpoles are typical installations of department stores. They're typically installed symmetrically and at transitional areas of the buildings. So gimbals on the left, we're seeing flags at that break between the base and the shaft of the building. Saks Fifth Avenue, of course, is known for its line of flagpoles, which are located here. They also have some at the roof and at this upper level break right here. And then Macy's, interestingly enough to the left has a corner sign on 7th Avenue, as well as flagpoles at the base shaft break along West 34th Street in this 1931 photo. And then the former S.H. Crescenco building on 5th Avenue had these flagpoles at the base of the building. So just to end on a photo of the building. To summarize, BF Goodrich building was once a prominent building showcasing large signage at the roof that transitioned to having the flagpole at its center in the first half of the 20th century. It's been fully adaptively reused for Nordstrom, which places it within that context of other department stores in New York City. Not only did the flagpole exist historically on the building, but we feel having 2 flagpoles above the base where the building transitions to its shaft is appropriate based on the building's age and new use. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move to questions from members of the committee. Members of the committee, you can use the raise hand function to ask questions. And we will start with Renee Cafaro. Renee, go ahead.
Yes, I have a couple questions about the flagpole. Perhaps I missed it. It was kind of stuttering a little bit during the presentation, but how big is the actual flag itself? Are there going to be limitations on how big that flag can be in general? And also lighting on the flags themselves. You know, it didn't look like in the rendering there was any, but I wanted to clarify.
Sure. Joe, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Currently, the flags are rendered at 12 feet by 8 feet. And as far as lighting, there is currently no lighting. That's something we could investigate once we have the flags installed.
Thank you. Do you have any follow-ups, Renee?
Sorry, I muted. Not really. Other than I would probably dissuade them to maybe investigate the lighting. I didn't bring that up because I wanted to see lighting, but more that I'm more concerned about the lighting and the subsequent penetration into the building in order to mount said lighting. So it's not really a follow-up question, but maybe a follow-up comment that it didn't mean, that was not my intent of bringing up the lighting.
Sure, sure. Well, there's no lighting as part of this proposal.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to Richard. Richard, go ahead with your question.
Sure. Are either of these buildings individual landmarks?
They are both individual landmarks.
Well, okay, thanks.
Moving on to Tony. Tony, go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Layla. Sarah, maybe you just touched on this.
We can barely hear you, Tony.
Sorry about that. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah, you may have just touched on this. Regarding the banner, is there any lighting at all proposed for the banner? You said there's nothing proposed for the flagpoles, anything for the banner at all?
No, I had mentioned that the historic sign at the corner was illuminated, but this is not proposed to be illuminated.
Okay. And then going to the flagpoles, what are they made out of?
Steel would be the flagpole itself, and then the typical flagpole balls at the end would be aluminum.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Karen.
Tony asked one of my questions. The other is regarding the flagpole. Are there any supplemental wires that keep it from blowing in the breeze? You know, sometimes you see stabilization guide wires, or is it really just a free floating 12 by 8 fabric that's going to flap in the wind?
Yeah, my understanding is that it's not going to have additional anchors for that fabric part of it. I don't know if Joe has Ace mentioned anything about having additional anchors for that flag itself.
No, we hadn't discussed it. I think it would be something where we would see just based on wear and tear, and if that would be something that would help it potentially last longer, then it might be something we could add.
Mhm. Then a follow-up to that, Leila, are these the proposed graphics for each of the two signs, or would these also be changing? Will one side read Nordstrom's and the other be the American flag?
These would change. There would always be at least one American flag. But for like Memorial Day or July 4th, it could be two American flags or something like that. But the idea is that it would change.
Okay, so one is permanent, always the flag, and the others can change. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any more questions from members of the committee? Okay.
You know what, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Leila, just
Yeah, go
back
ahead.
to the graphics, because the deck we shared is a slightly different version than this. The one we received earlier had a different logo. It had a logo of a big N in black and white graphic with the word Nordstrom written below. The one you're sharing now is Nordstrom's written quite small. The font size is the version on the screen now on page 17, the final iteration.
I mean, this is the updated graphic that we've chosen, but as I said, the flag itself is going to change. So it could be the graphic that you're looking at, or it could be this graphic. Because Landmarks doesn't regulate the actual fabric of flagpoles, we don't have necessarily a final design for that Nordstrom flag.
I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I actually have a question / clarification. I'm sorry. Historically, there were flagpoles on the U.S. Rubber Company building, right? And are you planning and contemplating under this application or under a future application to actually reintroduce flagpoles on this building?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if Chris or Joe, you want to comment?
Not at this time. That hasn't been any sort of discussion or consideration for us.
And can you actually explain the rationale for choosing to locate the flagpoles on the smaller of the two buildings, and certainly on the narrower frontage of the two buildings?
That part of it is the building orientation. That's kind of in between, because we also have the building on the corner, 1776. So it's at the center. It's a bit, even though it's these three separate buildings, it kind of serves as our center. And when you proceed in that entry, it's more into the main store. And then coincidentally across Broadway is our men's store. So that's like a real good conduit for us to go back and forth. So it's just to really highlight that as a primary entrance, if you will, off Broadway. The other entrances go in through our beauty hall and so it's a little less dramatic. And so that one we wanted to build up as our more grand entrance.
Got it. Okay. And then you said the third building is 1776. So this is the new tower. This is the Central Park Tower.
No, that's so this building we lease the bottom 4 floors of that. So we have retail and restaurants and some services in there. That building has been reclad in glass on the lower portion of that. The Central Park Tower actually runs from 57th to 58th, kind of behind all of this. And so that's where you see the wave glass facade. You're not seeing it obviously in these pictures, but that's the main big box of the building. That building actually carries beyond the building you're seeing behind. Yeah, you're seeing a little glimpse of it there. And the 1780 Broadway, while that's historic front, behind that connects into the big base building that sits below Central Park Tower. So it's kind of a unique way in which all these pieces fit together.
And is there a harmonious relationship, in signage between all these buildings?
Yeah, we obviously, the aesthetics of this is so important, and the detail, we really tried to, spared at no cost to try to get these details right. And so while the exterior is very different, I mean, from brand new wave glass to these historical facades, all of our Nordstrom branding around is the same. The blades of the sign that you see kind of right there on the picture, that is the same kind of typeface and approach that we have on all the different entrances. It comes to life in slightly different ways depending on the doorways. But we feel like Broadway is such a special street for us. The 57th Street and 58th Street with that wave glass, it's much more modern, and it doesn't even provide some of the additional opportunities like a flagpole, for instance, on that wouldn't necessarily make sense due to the architecture. So this is where we want to play up that very historical, special kind of department stores of old feeling.
Okay, would you be able to share some of this signage on the non-historic buildings with us? I know that it's not under the purview of this application, but I think it would be helpful for us to get a better sense of the streetscape that you're creating.
You mean as a follow-up to this meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Great.
And if you, when Sarah showed the 1780, and we can certainly provide that, the 1780 picture in current form. Oh, so honestly, so as you can see there, glass with the Nordstrom in it. I don't know, Sarah, if you can kind of hover. Well, you can see that is the exact same approach that we have. It's very subtle, and it's very small. And that is what sits on each of the transoms around the building. Both on the men's store and the women's. So that's very consistent. We can show you that. We're really excited. 57th Street has been under construction. It's going to be unveiled. So right now there's big construction hoarding around there. So you really won't get a good sense of what our signage looks like today because it's covered by this huge sidewalk shed that's been there for years.
Well, if you had any renderings that you could share with us, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
And as a follow-up to this meeting, if you can share that with us before next week Thursday, that would be great. So let's see if any other members of the committee have any further questions. Members of the committee, any further questions to the applicant on this application? Okay, I see no hands up, so I am going to open up to members of the public, and it looks like we have none. All right, we are among ourselves tonight, so that makes it easier. We are ready to move into business session. I just want to make sure that the applicant is done with our presentations. Are there any further comments that you wish to make before we move to business session where members of the committee would be discussing this application? No? Yeah.
Just reiterating, the banner is only for 8 months out of the year, and the flagpoles, the flagpole existed historically, and we feel that because of the reuse for a department store, the 2 flagpoles at that break between the base and the shaft is appropriate at 1780.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move to business session. Members of the committee, we need comments on this application, and then we need to make a motion. You can use the raise hand function to start making comments. Barbara.
It's a very nice presentation, and I think it really hit all the points that I was interested in seeing. I think it's pretty, I think there's some historic basis for doing the flagpoles, and I think it's done in a fairly understated way. I think I have no problem with this addition to these buildings, and I work around there, so I can also understand that a little extra attention to the entrances might be warranted as well. As somebody I haven't been to my office in over a year, but I do recall that it's easy to walk by.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments, members of the committee? Karen, I'm going to call on you.
Sure. I concur with Barbara. I think, reiterate what she stated. I think the fact that they're fastening and anchoring into the joints between the marble on 1790 is always what we ask for, and they're doing that already. And, you know, they have a sign already up there now, and they're actually decreasing the size. So we got to see a real life mock-up, which is a good thing, and it's getting a little bit smaller. So I have no objections. I think it's appropriate and proper detailing, especially for the use on retail. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So if I read the room, and you know, I have to say that I concur with the comments that Barbara and Karen made. It looks like overall there are not any salient issues that we have with this proposal. Is it fair to say? I see heads nodding and no hands going up. So yeah, you know, and before we actually make a motion, I would just like to commend the applicant also for the beautiful restoration that they did. This was something that was very important. I actually vividly remember the presentation that they gave at the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and the commissioners actually asked them to go anywhere they had to find the appropriate marble for the base of the building, and they did. And the restoration is really a great contribution to Community Board 5. So I want to commend the applicant for that. All right, so it looks like we are ready to make a motion. I don't want to speed things up, but I don't see any reason why not. So unless there's an objection, Karen, you were actually assigned due diligence for this one, if you want to make a motion.
Sure. I make a motion to approve.
And we need a second.
Second.
All right, and we are ready to take the one and only vote of the evening. Buzz.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Suzanne. I think she's not with us. Richard.
Yes.
Mike. Mike.
Yes. Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
And Layla, I'm a yes. And the motion carries. It's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much to the applicant for this great presentation. And with all of that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Leila. Thank you, everyone. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Thanks.
Bye.